15 years of coaching distilled into one video. This is the number one. I'm going to give you one gold nugget, one ultimate pearl of advice to help you grow as a coach, both in how you are confident in serving and helping more people, but also in how you communicate what it is that you do with power as a coach, to have people actually respect you as a coach. Because if you've ever wondered, how do I have an aura about me? How do I have an energy, a presence about me that when people come into contact with me, they want more of it. They feel more seen as a result of me just being there. Whether we connect live face to face or on a Zoom call, they're feeling a deeper connection with themselves. How do I become the person? Not just what's the tactic that ultimately helps me go out and get more clients, but how do I become the coach that has that natural magnetic presence about you that brings clarity and truth into the air, that strips out the bullshit, that kind of clears the way immediately? How do I become that person? Because decade and a half plus now, there's a lot that I've discovered along the way. And I mean, for me, starting off my journey as a coach from a very young age, I was 23 years old when I started coaching full time. I had a coach that told me, like, dude, you're an old soul. You're meant to do this. And I thought he was absolutely insane. I was 23 years old, barely out of college, loved being coached, loved reading personal development books, loved learning about human transformation, never once thought I was ready to become a coach. And he said, trust me, do it. And lo and behold, I did. And I'm glad I did. I started coaching people. And early on in my career, I'm coaching people twice my age. And I'm wondering, how do I come across as credible when I don't have the experience, literally as a coach, but also in life itself? How do I sound the part? How do I sound like a leader? How do I come across the right way? What do I do when I'm challenged? What do I do when someone asks me, you're a kid, what are you going to tell me? And I had to learn how to overcome this very early on in my career. It was not easy. It was a lot of me really facing a lot of my fears at a young age. And so I totally get if you're a coach right now and you're wondering and even doubting what makes me different, what makes me powerful, what makes me the person that they're going to want to hire, that makes them trust me. What is the one thing I got to convey? And I'm going to speak from my experience here, and I'm going to share with you the one dynamic that I had to completely root out in myself, that if I'm not mindful of will still show up from time to help you root it out. And once you understand how to yank this weed out of your consciousness and delete it and throw it away, it immediately makes you a better coach. Because this is something that very few people really know about in the coaching community. It's the ultimate elephant in the room that everything gets built around. And until you address this elephant in the room, you're going to continue to be someone that is constantly falling into this one trap, into this one habit. So what is the trap? What is the weed that we got to yank out? Ultimately, it is proving yourself. It is feeling like you need to prove yourself. And that can take on a lot of different connotations, a lot of different aspects to that. It can mean proving yourself in terms of your skill set as a coach, how good you are. And so there are a lot of coaches that fall into the rabbit hole of constantly getting trained and certified and recertified and retrained and learning new modalities. And I got to learn Reiki, I got to learn NLP, I got to learn, I got to get up my skill set in ICF up to date. I got to go from, ACC, PCC, MCC. I got to keep going up the scale. And we're constantly getting more of the skill set as a coach honed over time, which on one hand is awesome. You're getting yourself better, but is it coming from proving yourself? Is it coming because deep down you feel insecure that you are not enough, that your skill set is not enough? For me, I didn't go that way. For me, it was really more about learning. It was about, all right, I need to crack more books open. They can't see that I'm a kid. I'm 23 years old. So I can't just talk from my lived experience. I have to show them that I know, that I know, that I know. And so in our coaching sessions, I'm constantly dumping, information on people whenever I can. Well, Tony Robbins would say this. Well, Brene Brown might actually lead to this. Well, if you actually would consider that, Eckhart Tolle, when he talks about consciousness, says this. I would pull from all these other people, but never from myself, because I didn't have I didn't have any life experience. I'm a kid living with my mom and coaching out of her car in her garage because I have a client that is on the West Coast and he's getting off work at 5 6 p.m, getting settled in, doing his workout, and then he's ready to be coached at 8 p.m, which is 11 p.m my time. And I don't want to lose the client. I don't want to aggravate him. So here I am climbing into a car because the townhouse is too small for me to be actually coaching him. And so I have to go somewhere where I won't keep my mom up, and I'm crawling into this car, and that's where I'm having a coaching session until midnight. And I'm over delivering until we're going to 12:30. And that's what I'm doing at this age. Constantly proving myself that I will jump through any hoop you give me, any hoop, no matter what it is, to prove that I'm good enough for you. So the skill set rabbit hole is one. This shows up as well, though, from a marketing perspective and the way that we as coaches communicate what it is that we do. The way that we say, hey, here's my background, my experience, here's what I do, here's testimonials and case studies, and what else do you need from me? And a lot of people on LinkedIn, a lot of coaches on LinkedIn, because I've looked at probably 5,000 to 6,000 coaching profiles here in the last few years. 90% of them just sound, and maybe that's generous, it might be more like 95%, their entire online presence, just one big resume. Like, because you can position your message to, again, prove your credibility, or you can position your messaging to speak right into the heart of another person. And so in a coaching session, that dynamic becomes more clear, becomes more obvious, because you're coaching the person and through your training, it's not about you, it's about them. And so you're putting all your energy on them. But now your marketing, your online presence is about you. And the default here is to prove our credibility instead of speaking directly to our ideal client, making it about them. So immediately there's a disconnect between what happens with the marketing and the messaging and the power in that coaching session. This proving energy is rampant in the space. It shows up as well on the actual conversations. It shows up through the hoops that we're willing to jump through. I was willing to jump through every hoop that you gave me. It didn't matter what it was. It was kind of like, Byron, prove it. Okay, I'll prove it. Byron, prove this. Okay, I'll prove it. And if you don't like that, I'll give you a full money back guarantee. And if you don't like this, you should talk to my other client because they had an amazing breakthrough and you should trust me. And okay, well, why don't we just try this for a week? And if it doesn't work, then you can quit. It was me constantly giving off all these subtle clues around just prove it, prove it, prove it. And for the longest time in my career, I never let go of that. It was really hard for me. And that's where I felt this deep tension in my gut. Some people, if you ever shown up in a discovery call, a sales call, right, where it just feels natural, it just feels like you can be confident, you can flow, you're feeling good, you're completely out of your head, you're present, you're tuned into that person. Life is amazing, right? And it's when we're most confident as coaches. And yet there's other times when you're on that call and you feel like this churning sensation in you, and it can switch on you real quick. They can throw you a question out of left field. They can now show you doubt. And what's fascinating is I've observed this in myself. And if there's anything I've discovered, again, in the last 15, 16 years of doing this, the biggest trap, the biggest mirage, the hallucination to see that's not there is to hear a challenging question and to perceive it as a lack of trust in who you are, in your worthiness, in your skills, in your credibility, in your right and your permission to lead that person, to internalize the doubt, to personify the doubt, to make it mean something about how good you are. And this happens subconsciously, and it happens in a matter of milliseconds. And now the conversation is shifted from being about that person to now proving how awesome we are. It's shifted from being present and really helping that person and now trying to be on the witness stand and say, hey, hold on, let me defend my case. Let me defend my case. And that magic that we bring to the table is now gone. And that's the problem. And what happens then is the other person immediately feels that, and it doesn't take more than a few seconds of being in this energy for things to quickly fall apart. We're no longer as congruent. We're no longer as confident. We're no longer as present. We're in our head, and our body language displays all of that. And they don't consciously know, oh, wow, this person's trying to prove themselves, but they feel something off in the energy. There's a little extra tension behind sharing that next part. There's an awkwardness around the story they're telling, the vulnerability. I don't feel seen as much as I was before. It now seems like you're trying to convince me of this idea instead of me connecting to the next level in my life, in my business, in my journey. And now instead of it feeling like, wow, this is really speaking to me, it's now speaking at me. And this proving dynamic can completely wreck your career as a coach if you're not mindful of that. And this is the trap that the coaching industry keeps falling into over and over again. It's how do we prove, how do we recertify, retrain, how do we fill that hole that has been empty for the longest time? Because just being a good coach will never fill that hole. You have to ultimately fill it yourself. You have to declare. No one else will give you permission to be awesome as a coach. No one else will give you that permission to say you are an awesome coach. You have to claim it yourself. You have to go within and say, I am. I do not need to prove myself anymore. And in fact, one of the things that you can start doing instead of kind of internalizing it and thinking about it, you can actually say, hey, it sounds like you're asking me to prove myself to you. It sounds like you don't trust me. It sounds like there's a doubt in you. Is that what's showing up? And now you're back to coaching. You're not on the witness stand. You want to be mindful of not just being in the conversation as a participant, but also being outside the conversation, observing the conversation, being present to the conversation, the undercurrents of the conversation, and calling them out. Because that's what prevents you from falling into those traps where now it's about your insecurity. If there's anything I've learned that I can share, that is it. Be ruthless with cutting out how you need to prove yourself as a coach. And you will find that most people then resonate with the truth in what you're saying. They will feel seen and connected with you. And that is the best thing that I can possibly share with you.